Hey friends, in this quick video, I'll talk to you about the power of multi-threading and exactly how you can multi-thread and make sure that you close more opportunities by identifying all the decision makers within the company that you're selling into, and how you can then keep them all in the loop to make sure that you have a higher probability of closing that deal. So without further ado, let's first talk about what multi-threading is. And multi-threading is basically identifying key stakeholders within a company who will likely be influenced, impacted, responsible or accountable for making a decision about buying the thing that you're selling to them. So, in other words, you need to map out anyone that could have an influence on choosing you as the service provider for the company that you're selling into. So, that starts with the first conversation that you have with the person, right? So, whenever you're on a call with a lead, those are some questions that will get you started. First of all, hey, last time you got a vendor for this type of project, was it just your team that was involved in choosing them, or was the compliance team involved? Was the legal team involved? That's the first kind of question you can ask. The second question is something like, oh, you know what? Typically, the procurement team takes over after we speak with the project team. Is that the case here? Or does the finance team get involved right away? Once again, here we're trying to basically just identify the stakeholders. And if I were you, just have a checklist of these different people that potentially could get involved. So firstly, it's the end user. Secondly, it's typically the finance team, the founders, the C-level people, procurement, supply chain, compliance, or legal teams. And you need to be asking these questions. You really need to understand, first of all, what teams are involved. If you walk out of the demo not knowing what teams are involved, the chance of that deal closing, let's be real, are not going to be high, right? Now, the second thing that you could be doing before calls, and I think this is like sweating the tiny little details, and to a lot of people, this would seem cringe, but in my opinion, this is something that you really would do. If you do this, you would be 10 times more likely to succeed than any other mediocre salesperson that just settles for, not doing this. And here is what I think the difference is. I think the really, really good sales guys would reach out to the other stakeholders and like try and map out the other stakeholders before that initial conversation. So let's say if I'm speaking to Coca-Cola London office and I'm speaking to their project manager tomorrow, then in that case, today I can reach out to this person, let's say to their director of insights, and reach out and say, hey, your colleague schedule a meeting with me. Most titles like you are curious to learn about how they can automate reports, they can focus more on analysis. Happy to keep you in the loop as things progress. Now, the reason that we do this is because we need to identify the stakeholders. And in this case, I'm giving you an example of me working for a report automation company. So let's say if I'm automating reports like PowerPoint reports, dashboards, all that kind of boring stuff. In that case, the first thing I would do is I think, okay, if I'm speaking to a project manager, the chances are they report to this person who's the director of insights. So I'm going to reach out to the director of insights and say, hey, just so you know, this person books in a call with me. The chances are this is what we're going to be talking about. Now, this is interesting for you, then I'll keep you in the loop. And what this does is it already means that you're top of mind so next time when they hear about this person having a conversation with you, they'll already remember like, oh, hey, this guy reached out to me like that. That actually reminds me of that company, right? So that's the first thing. Now, after the call itself, you would send a note something like this to the other stakeholders as well. Hey, just had a great chat with your colleague, awesome person. They told me the struggles of doing, quarterly tracker studies, blah, 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 or like whatever the pain points were that you discovered on the call. Most titles like you get involved with every step of the evaluation, but still like don't get involved with every step of the evaluation, but still want to be kept in the loop. I attached a little overview to bring you up to speed. Let me know if you'd like an invite for future calls or if you prefer not to get these updates. Now, once again, you could probably say this is cringe, this is useless, what's the point of doing it? But I do think marginally your chances of closing the deal are a lot higher if you reach out to the stakeholders after the call that you've identified previously and keep them in a loop. Because this kind of a passive email, you're not asking for anything in return, but rather you're staying top of mind. And guess what? 9 out of 10 other sales guys are not going to bother doing this. So by default, you will already be the number one, like you will make them the number one most informed vendor on that list that they're probably choosing from. So this alone could be the difference, right? So that's the first thing. And then the other thing worth mentioning is you do need to speak different languages to them. And what I mean by that is, let's say I'm selling report automations. If I identify the other stakeholder to be a CFO, they will care about the focus on cost savings, ROI, efficiency, some sort of financial metrics that you can quantify. As opposed to if you're reaching out to a project manager, they only care about the time savings, they only care about meeting deadlines, they want report automation taken off their shoulders, right? It's a completely different set of interests. With founders, they probably care more about scalability and innovation. They want to name drop this as a cool feature, like, oh, cool, we automate our reports using AI, some BS like that. And the reason for that is this will be a big selling point for them when they sell it to clients, right? And once again, if you're talking to a director of insights, for example, you would be talking about the data accuracy and how you're faster to uncover those insights, which will then mean that the companies that you provide those insights for will be faster to action them and launch their marketing campaigns faster. So essentially, all of this means that all you have to do is basically start by identifying the key stakeholders. After that, reach out to the key stakeholders that you believe will be involved, but who are not on that first call before the call. So reach out to them right before the call and promise to do this 2 or 3 times for me just to try this out. Then afterwards, reach out to them after the calls to keep them in the loop. You have to focus on speaking their specific language. So you need to emphasize the benefits here in different ways, depending on the job title. And then finally, you will ultimately at some point find a champion throughout. So what I mean by champion is someone who actively supports and promotes your product, someone who understands the benefits and the value. And in that case, you will single thread them, meaning that you will get in touch with them, you will share additional information with them. You'll ask them what the objections could be from the rest of the team. And that will then give you a good insight into, what hurdles you need to overcome in order to close that deal. Now, a large reason for the reason that, the biggest reason that the chances are that you're not closing a lot of the deals right now is because you're simply not doing this, and other sales teams are. So if I were you, give it a shot with multi-threading. Try it on 5, 10 deals. I think if you do it on 10 deals really well, and if you set reminders to follow up before the meeting, after the meeting, and all that stuff, you can genuinely be so much better than 99% of salespeople out there. And you can probably land a job doing enterprise sales by the end of it, which, is a well-paid job, as I can imagine. Now, that means ultimately that when the proposal is on the table, every decision maker knows who you are. Every decision maker heard of your company and heard of your name. They see you going out of your way to provide updates and keep them in the loop. So essentially what that means is, guess what? They're probably going to be more likely to sign you on as a service provider, as a vendor, than any other automation company out there that's doing the absolutely bare minimum of just firing an email after the meeting. Now, if you have any questions on this, do let me know, but I would very much recommend that you follow these 5 steps for multi-threading, and let me know how you get on. Feel free to comment down below if you've got any questions or if you want me to record any more other videos. All the best in the meantime. Cheers.